Joining me now all the way from Romania is the Menzies Research Centre Senior Fellow and Danube Institute Visiting Fellow, Nick Cater. Nick, let's start with the Albanese government. Today, the PM announced Indigenous Australians Minister Linda Burney and Skills Minister Brendan O'Connor are retiring. A new ministerial lineup will be announced Sunday. What's been the legacy of these two ministers and who do you see elevated in this reshuffle?
Brendan O'Connor, let's answer that one first, and I can't answer it because I don't remember one single significant thing he did or said. Linda Burney, well, yeah, I mean, her legacy is, well, great for the country, I think, and that is that they lost the referendum election. And for her part in their losing that yes vote, then I think she needs congratulating. But she was a very poor minister. She didn't really ever understand the issues at stake with regional and remote Australia. Certainly I think, unfortunate for her, by the way, I think that Jacinta Price was the shadow minister, because Jacinta Price obviously is somebody who knows and lived in that area and knows it very well. So, no, the ministerial shuffle, well, it's far too late for Albanese. In the end, the only person on that entire cabinet I think they could shuffle and the public might respond positively would be Albanese himself, really. So he's the problem in that government, and he can do as many reshuffles as he likes between now and the election, but it's not going to improve his chances.
Yes, he does have a lot of problems, and I would argue Chris Bowen is one of them. And you wrote a column for The Australian about Chris Bowen's green hydrogen dream collapsing all around him, especially after Andrew Forrest told his Fortescue investors he was all but abandoning this dream. How much money has been squandered, Nick, in pursuit of this fantasy, and how much of it has been our money, taxpayer money, while we sit back and ignore proven technology, nuclear technology, that could provide us with clean energy?
Billions, Rita, and the government was ready to put in billions or more. In fact, it still is willing to put in billions more. They had this thing called the Hydrogen Head Start programme. It didn't actually give it much of a start. There was $2 billion originally, and I think they put that up in the most recent budget. But Andrew Forrest, I mean, he was a man who said less than 3 years ago, he stood before the National Press Club and said this was the miracle molecule. This was going to make us the superpower, the energy superpower of the 21st century. And on he went. He was going to produce 15 million tonnes of the stuff, and none of it's been produced in commercial quantities at all so far. And then, of course, he hit the real snag, which is the cost of renewable energy, which, wait for it, is not as cheap as Chris Bowen says. And Andrew Forrest could tell him that because he's tried to get some contracts to make his green hydrogen and hasn't been able to get them at the price he wanted.
And yet we've got Chris Bowen, you would think has got some fairly big issues to deal with. He's not only committed to his net zero pipe dream, but he's spending time on X tweeting like some sort of a teenage activist who's just attended their first Socialist Alliance meeting. He's calling his political opponents things like cookers and conspiracy theorists. What do you make of his conduct? I mean, he's supposed to be a senior minister in charge of key portfolios, and he's carrying on like this.
I mean, look, the Australian energy market operator says that the whole system is badly in need of propping up, that, the more coal we're losing out of the system, the more unstable it gets. He's got to do something to replace that. It's a very, very difficult job, by the way. I mean, it's one of the most difficult jobs in government. So how he's got time to go on Twitter, or why he bothers? I mean, who's listening? I mean, you obviously watch. I mean, you've got a whole segment called Lefties Losing It to fill. So, he's that's the sort of material you need. But I mean, is it actually persuading anybody? And I noticed in that poll the Australian did of who people saw as the next leader of the Labor Party, I think his figures were sort of statistically insignificant. I don't think you could see them under an electron microscope. So if he thinks he's got a political career to prop up, he can forget it. This is the top job he's ever going to have.